Hello and welcome to How Would You Rate Your Pain? We will be exploring life, loss, love, and the power of resilience. I am Dr. Tiffany Bartell. Thank you for listening, and I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Hello and welcome to another episode of How Would You Rate Your Pain? I am Dr. Tiffany Bartell, your host, and I am here with my very dear friend, Dr. Sue Haddad. Welcome, Sue. Thank you, Tiffany. It's really good to be here. So for the listeners, maybe just tell them a little bit about you, and then I'll follow and tell them how we know each other.
Sure. So I currently live in Maryland. I've lived in Maryland most of my life, and I think we'll probably get to other parts of my story in terms of, where I'm originally from. But in terms of what I do, I've been in the counseling field for like over 20 years. And this is like a field that I just love so much. Mm-hmm. And I feel that I connected to like, when you go to college and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to be. For me, I always knew that I was going to be working with people. Mm-hmm. And so I've been in the field for quite a long time. And right now I'm doing a whole bunch of different things. But one of the things that I do is I teach at the University of the Cumberlands and in their master's level program. And I teach some of the graduate courses. And so that's a little bit about myself.
And I have to brag on you because you teach research, which is so daunting for so many.
Yes.
And I know you don't do social media, but I've seen your name come up quite a bit with students. And they're always like, Dr. Haddad made it less scary and took care of us. And that and assessment. And those are two pretty heavy courses.
Yeah, it's really interesting with that. I think, one of the things that I really value is kind of like meeting people where they are. Mm-hmm. And I think with research, it tends to be like one of those things. This is so scary. And everybody is like afraid of math. And I'm like, there's really no math. This is more about like understanding research and mm-hmm. digesting research. And so it's been really nice to kind of go through that journey with students so that they can see that it's really not that scary.
Well, so I think when you're teaching it, they definitely feel that guiding hand. So we met in when we were doing our PhDs at mm-hmm. the same time, and I remember seeing you in class and just thinking like, oh my goodness, she just is so smart, and I really appreciate your comments. And we just started being in almost every class together. I had already decided you were going to be my friend, and so that's what I tend to do is just pick people and then chase them down until they give in to be my friend. And so we did our dissertations at the same time. Mm-hmm. And for listeners, if you're trying to get your dissertation done, get a buddy.
Yes,
it makes it so much better. So every Friday we would meet and talk about where we were in our writing. And we got ourselves on this like self-imposed schedule of turning in proofs. And then I think we defended 1 week apart from each other. Yeah. So fun.
It was awesome. I think it was like one of the best experiences that I've ever had. And what's so interesting about that is like before going into that PhD program, this was something that I always thought about, that I always dreamed about. And it was like better than anything that I could have imagined. It was such a wonderful experience. And I think meeting you was one of the, highlight.
Oh, for sure. Me too, for sure. So one of the reasons I wanted to have you come on is obviously, you're an incredible person. I love the work that you do, but you also have like this really interesting story of, I think people meeting you today wouldn't know, all the things, all the ways that you, overcome struggles and had such a resilient life. And so let's start at the beginning. Tell us, what did the beginning of your life look like? And let's just start there.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Amman, Jordan. And for most people, when I say Jordan, they really don't know where that country is.
I kind of knew the geographical, meta area, but not really where it went.
Yeah. So So Jordan is a small country in the Middle East, and it's right next to Israel. And I was born in Amman, which is the capital. And I come from a very traditional family. I have 5 older brothers and sisters, and I grew up, I guess, in that country. My family was Catholic, and so that's not the dominant religion,
Right.
in that country. And so growing up in Jordan, from my memories and, what I remember, it was definitely a very traditional, country, very traditional values. My family has very traditional values. Like, I grew up in a Catholic family, so for all the Catholics out there, I think you know what that's like.
Yeah.
And so my family immigrated to the U.S. when I was about 7 years old.
Mm-hmm. What was the kind of the impetus to make such a huge move for such a big family?
Yeah. So, interestingly, my dad worked as a chef for the King of Jordan at that time, which was like really pretty remarkable.
That's amazing.
To think about it. And I think, we were just kind of looking for we had, in terms of like America, like everybody knows, like America is the place to be. It's where dreams are made, and all of those things. Yeah, absolutely, the opportunities. And so I think, my father had decided that it would be like a good thing for the family to move to America. And what was interesting is that, he was like head chef. Everybody knew my dad in Amman. And then, we come to the U.S. with very little. We had, little money.
Pots and pans, I think you told me.
Pots and pans, right. So that was like one of the things that I remember. So when my dad came, he came here like before, to kind of get situated and things like that. And I remember my poor mom, who didn't speak like a word of English, had never traveled or anything like that.
No.
And if you can imagine taking, 6 children aged from like 7 to 17 at that time.
Wow.
And making like this long journey from, Jordan to the U.S. And it was so funny because each one of us, I remember, I think now looking back, like people must have thought we were weird. But like each one of us is carrying like these pots and pans from Jordan.
Your carry-ons?
That were carry-ons. Those were our carry-ons. And some blankets and things like that. And, my mom was, she loved cooking. And of course, my dad, loved, had a passion for cooking as well. And so I will just never forget these pots. And what's so interesting is they still exist. We've been here like,
oh my goodness,
over 30 years, right?
Where are the pots?
But they're still here.
Yeah.
They're at my brother's house.
Okay.
And so that was kind of like our journey here. We had some family members here, but kind of like not knowing, the language and
being so known in Jordan.
Absolutely. And then coming here.
Yeah.
And then not really, and then just the differences in terms of the culture. Yeah. Such, really stark differences between, the Western culture and this very, traditional Jordanian culture. So it was really tough. And I just remember like, going to elementary school and trying to learn the language. And
so you didn't speak English?
I didn't speak English.
Okay.
And I remember like, when we had snow days, right? I don't know that we have that many snow days these days, but at any rate, I remember like the school, they would close the schools and things like that. But I didn't really understand. My parents didn't understand like, oh, school is closed. It's a snow day. So I remember like my sister and I, walked all the way to school and only to find like little kids like playing in the snow. And they were just like looking at us, like school is closed. Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And we just kind of didn't understand, like, what was happening. So all of those things,
Those
like in terms of that
things.
yeah, absolutely. And then getting sort of accustomed to the, different foods and things like that. Like, we don't have peanut butter. Right?
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah.
like all of those things that took a lot of time. And I think, one of the things that was really different about the educational system in the U.S. is that the schools that I had gone to in Jordan, they use corporal punishment. So that's how, kids were disciplined. And so and I think I've talked to you about this before, we talked about like, anxiety and things like that. And I think like I knew that at least, from my upbringing and my early schooling in Jordan, I kind of like developed like this real fear of, being in school and being in trouble and things like that. And when I came to the U.S., I was like, this is really strange. Like, these kids are out of control and nobody is saying it. And so it was like, it was just, it was really just a lot of adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like, how did your family kind of, because that's a huge spread from 7 to 17, like, how did everyone find their way?
Yeah, I think one of the things that like my parents did was they really tried, I think they sheltered us, to be honest. And I will also say, I feel like my brothers had different rules than, because it's like we're the Brady Bunch. So I have 3 brothers and, there's 3 sisters. Mm-hmm. And so it was really interesting as a young child kind of watching this. Like, my brothers, like, they can kind of go out, do whatever they want. Whereas for us girls, it was much different, So I think in terms of finding our way, it was different for each one of us. But I think, one of the things about being the youngest is that you kind of have an advantage of seeing how everybody else progressed.
Okay.
So
you can learn from...
So I could learn. Exactly. So one of the things that I noticed was that, and again, with traditional, values, you get married, like you finish school, get married, you have kids, that's the way it is. And so I got to watch like all of my siblings get married very young.
Okay.
And, start families and things like that. And I think when I finished, I was like, no, I really want to go to college. So I was like the first one in my family to go to college. Which wasn't easy to kind of convince my dad.
Yeah, like, why?
Because he's like, yeah, and, no girl of mine is going to go to, live somewhere else and all of that. So I didn't get to go in terms of like, most people might, go residential, things like that. I didn't. And, but I got to go to University of Maryland, which is an awesome school.
Yeah. And so you were a commuting student.
I was a commuting student, and no one else in my family had gone to college. In terms of my parents' education, my dad finished, I think, about the 6th grade.
Okay.
My mom finished maybe 8th grade.
Wow.
So that was really hard because
it must have been really foreign for them.
Yeah,
for you to like want that and be doing that.
Absolutely. And it's interesting is like I navigated college all by myself in terms of figuring out like what my major is going to be, the finances for it, all of that. Like I was able to kind of just figure that out.
Wow.
With very little assistance. And then I ended up graduating in like 3.5 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You're busy.
I was busy. And, that perfectionist part of me, I didn't even know until I showed up for graduation and my parents were there. And one of my professors, he kind of like pulled me aside and he said, "Congratulations." And I was like, "For what?" And he's like, "You're summa cum laude." And I was like, that mean? And he's like, it's really a big deal. And so my uncle kind of overheard this, and then he went to my dad, and, he's like, he told him that story. I still get like choked up about it. But so I'm thinking about opportunity. Mm-hmm. I would have never had that opportunity, Mm-hmm. So that's like, one of the moments.
Yeah, your parents, wanted you guys to have opportunities and sacrificed so much.
Right.
And ended up giving you opportunities that they didn't even think about.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. So what did you do after your bachelor's? Like, what made you go on to graduate school? Because that's huge too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I ended up, at that time I was, just like anyone who graduates, looking for different jobs and things like that. And I think I had said that I knew that I would be working with people in a helping capacity. Mm-hmm. Didn't quite know exactly what, but at the time I was able to get a position at a residential like pre-release center. So it was really working with inmates who were incarcerated for kind of more milder kinds of offenses, maybe like a substance use history, that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of getting ready to reintegrate. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, wow.
And so this job was like totally unlike me. Like, here is this very shy, sheltered person who lived in this kind of, protective environment, in this bubble. And I'm working with,
probably some tough people.
Tough people, exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember in the, I just remember in the interview process and the onboarding process and, talking to some of the employees and things like that, they were like, don't ever like let them see that you're scared or anything like that. And I was like, okay, I'll just try to be like who I am and myself. And it was a very challenging job. And like I said, it was really funny because a lot of times I would work late. Like, it would be, what part of my job was to take the inmates to different social gatherings in the area. So sometimes I'll have to, we'll do outing to a baseball game or a play or something like that. And,
were you driving?
And I was driving.
Well, yeah. Oh, okay.
And if you can imagine, like a 15-passenger van.
Okay. And you don't know this because she's sitting, but you're the same height as me. We're about 5 feet tall.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like the first time I took out the van, right? And as I was backing up, all of a sudden I hear boom. And I was like, my gosh, did I hit something? And then I noticed that it was one of the participants just kind of messing with me.
Oh my goodness.
And I was just like,
oh my goodness.
Okay, just stop. And then they were like really protective of me. Oh, they were really nice. And it was like nothing that I had, imagined. So it was actually a really good experience. But it was that experience that I think really kind of inspired me to go back and get my master's degree. And so, I worked there for about 9 months, and then I went straight back to get my master's degree.
Yeah. What did your family think of you working that job? Did they know what you were doing?
Oh, no. Well, and my mom was like, I don't understand why you're coming home at 2 a.m. What is this job? And, every time I would try to explain it, they just couldn't really grasp it. And it's like so funny because anytime like my dad would, see his friends and things like that, and he would say, my real name is Haddad. So he'd say, this is my youngest daughter, Haddad. I'm so proud of her. And, this and that. And she's a straight A student and all of that. And then, but he's like, but I don't really know what she does. What? That's so, and it was like, oh, My word is very smart. People.
Yeah.
I help people that. And
Yeah.
so it was really funny.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
So then, as you were going through graduate school, what were you still living at home?
Yeah, I was still living at home, and I finished graduate school, and then I remember my mom, telling me, she was just like, okay, this education thing was really nice, and all your siblings are married, and like you're in your mid-20s, you're getting older, so it's time for you to get married. And I was like, but obviously, like it would not have been okay for me to leave the house unless I was, going to get married. And so I married someone who's also Jordanian.
Is that something like in your family? Do a lot of people marry people who are also Jordanian?
At that time.
Okay.
At that time. And I think, since living in the U.S. and things like that, a lot has changed in terms of the new generations. But at that time, that was the expectation.
Okay.
And so all my siblings had married, people who were from Jordan and things like that. So that was kind of like the expectation. And so I did. It was somebody that kind of like my family knew and, going to be able to take care of me and all of that. And, we ended up having 2 beautiful boys.
They are wonderful.
And, yeah. And but then after a while, unfortunately, the marriage didn't work out. And I found myself, single, divorced with 2 young boys who are aged like 3 and 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so hard.
So, yeah. So that part was really hard. And I think I didn't realize at the time, like when I got divorced, it really felt like, I just really felt very lost. And, I had lived in a very, protective kind of environment. And now all of a sudden, I was going to be raising 2 young boys on my own
and working.
I was always working. And so that was a very tough time, I would say. And I think, though, like, what I learned, although during it, I was like a total mess. Okay. I just want to, just for the record.
Yeah.
I was a total mess. I was probably like crying like every single day. But I didn't realize like the strength that I already had in me.
Yeah.
And so what I mean by that is I didn't realize that I was the one that was kind of maintaining, the relationship, maintaining like that family unit in the home, and even finances. Okay. So I was so worried about like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? And it wasn't until like that break that I realized I had been doing this.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, that was.
So how long did it take you to kind of catch your stride or like notice that you were taking deep breaths again?
I would say it took a couple of years. Yeah, it was not an easy process.
Sure.
And I think for the first time, I would say, and I think part of the reason why I think it wasn't an easy process was because, for up to that point, I had been kind of doing things based on what, everyone else, right? What my family expected, and things like that. So I didn't really have a sense of what I wanted.
There's no map.
Yeah, there wasn't really. And so I kind of reached like that point of, I almost had like an identity crisis, like, who am I? And on so many levels, right? Because before that, it was like, trying to figure out who am I in terms of my cultural ethnicity.
Yeah.
And coming to the U.S. and, trying to decide, am I Arabic? Am I American? Who am I?
Yeah.
Right? And then with the divorce, it kind of like those feelings kind of resurface. Like, who am I?
Yeah.
And what am I doing? And what do I want? And all of those questions, like, it was just, I think that was what was overwhelming, because all of a sudden I had to kind of look within to try to find those answers instead of, my parents or my boss or whatever.
Right.
I had to really look within.
And that's a lot of pressure to have to be the decision maker in your own life.
Right.
When you've had so much guidance, whether wanted or unwanted, along the way. And so, if you were to think about like that period of time after when you started to kind of settle into yourself, what are some of the big moments or, times when you kind of added to that aha moment of like, I've got to figure out who I am and what I do, and know it in my own mind. Like, what are some of the impactful moments as you look back on that period of adulthood? And even to today, because I think we're still figuring that out.
Absolutely. I don't think it ends.
I think one of those
moments was being responsible for my kid. And so I think that made me kind of more grounded and solid in the sense that, I have 2 young boys that I felt I was very responsible for. Right.
And so that's a strong identity, being a mom.
Yes, exactly.
That's something you can really kind of like hold on to.
Absolutely. And so at that point it was like, okay, there is no other choice here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a pivotal moment, was just, to be a strong mom. I'm going to have to take the reins. Right.
Yeah.
It means that I have to be in the driver's seat. And I think that was one of those moments, during that period. I would say another time would be, so after my divorce and things like that, and I started dating, which was totally new to me. Okay.
Yeah.
And I just say that again,
Yeah.
like, totally new to me. Because I don't feel like I really, dated before. And when I started, I think that was like another moment, because then it really does make you look at how you are in relationships.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Okay. And so that was also like a learning. That also took some time, I think, for me. And I really feel like that's how we kind of learn more about ourselves, is through the relationships that we form with other people. And I think by doing that, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think by doing that, that really kind of helped me to kind of look at, who I am and what my wants and needs are and what my values are.
Yeah, I think that's so impactful, because, it's hard when you have to figure out things on your own. And, I hear a lot of young adults say this thing, I have all the power, but I have all the responsibility.
Yeah.
And so to kind of look down and see, like, I don't have pressure, but I also don't have a safety net. Like, I have to build my own safety net and anchor myself. That can feel like a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that was like another time where I got to kind of just look within.
Yeah, meet yourself.
And say, like, hey, you have another chance here. Right. So, yeah.
So how did your family kind of navigate you, having, a divorce and then being a single mom and being kind of a powerhouse of a single mom? You're providing for the family, you're, doing all the things, you're dating and making your own choices. Like, how was that for them? And I should say, I have met your family. I didn't have the privilege of meeting your parents, but and they're so lovely. Like, you have a really great family.
Yeah.
There's so many of them.
Yes, there is. Right.
So that was interesting. I think
I think my parents were surprisingly very supportive with respect to the divorce.
Okay.
Because they felt that that I wasn't respected.
Okay.
And so they felt like
it was the right move.
It was the right move. And I think with the dating thing, though, I'm not. No.
That's everything. Yeah.
It was interesting because, like I said, I mean, I have 3 brothers, and it was like having 4 fathers, all kind of watching, like, what are you doing? This, that. So, yeah, so that was still hard. But, yeah, so I think sometimes my other people could see my strength much more clearly than I could. So I was just doing it.
Yeah,
right.
Head down.
Just doing it. I was, working full time, making sure that, I provided for my boys, making sure that they felt loved and supported and unconditionally. And I had there were some rough times. Like my youngest wasn't always the easiest. Okay.
Which is so hard for me to believe because he's literally one of the sweetest people I've ever met.
But I believe you. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I think someone told me, they're like, you are so patient. Because I remember even with my younger son, and he would have tantrums and he would be like so mean. He was just mean. Like, are you so mean? But, I was just like, I just maintained that, love and patience and...
that space to work it out.
Exactly.
Kids don't always know how to talk about their feelings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, you worked in the field for a while. You have had your CV or your academic resume is so extensive. What got you into doing a PhD and like taking that big step? Because that's so that feels like such a big thing to enter into.
Yeah. So I will say that I had always dreamed of getting my PhD, and I think I think when I was 18, I had dreamed of getting my PhD. So it was always in my mind. I would say that I think I didn't have the confidence. So despite all the evidence, despite the fact that I graduated summa cum laude, despite the fact that I graduated with a 4.0 in my master's, despite all of these different achievements,
all your professional successes,
there was this thing in my mind that somehow a PhD just sounds so daunting.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I'm good enough. And I remember before my mom passed away, and I was sitting next to her, and one of the things that she said to me, she just looked at me and she just said, "You need to finish your PhD."
Wow.
And I was like, "Yeah, Mom. Yeah, I will." Just like, "Yeah, I know. I'll put that on my list, right?" And she goes, "No, you need to finish your PhD." And I was like, "Okay." And this happened like a couple of days before she passed. And then I think about a few years later, I remember having this dream where I was getting ready to process in a graduation. And on one side was my mom, and on the other side was my dad.
Yeah.
And so I had this dream that they were just kind of like anchoring that entryway.
Yeah.
And I was just getting ready to walk in that procession to get my PhD. And I remember waking up in the morning and I was like, it's time. Despite all the,
all the fear,
the lack of confidence and all of that, I was just like, I'm going to do it.
Wow.
And that's how, I went back and, and started on that journey. And I will tell you that I remember taking the first class, and I was just, it had been like a long time since I've, written a paper, been in academia, because I kind of went, for my bachelor's, I only had like a half a semester before I went back and got my master's.
Okay.
So now there's all this time.
Yeah. Several APA handbooks ago.
Right. And I'm like, oh my goodness, do I belong here? These people are probably going to be smarter than, and I just had all of these doubts.
Like imposter syndrome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just decided that, just take it like one class at a time, or, and there was a point where I think in the middle of it, I paused and I thought I couldn't do it. And I had made a decision. I had registered for all the classes. And I was like, I'm dropping. That's it. I'm not doing this. Why am I doing this? And, things like that. And it took like a couple people to kind of like, come back off the ledge. Like,
Yeah.
What's going on? And that was including my son, which was really,
That's
interesting. It was very special. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I was like, wait, why am I dropping out? And so I did end up finishing, but I remember, and I think what was interesting about that time when I was thinking about dropping out, it was really related to a course that made me kind of look back at my life and things like that. And it just kind of
stirred things up.
It stirred things up for me. And I was,
Yeah, you maybe weren't expecting that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I don't think having a degree changes you. I think doing a degree
absolutely
changes you. Just like I think doing any kind of training or becoming an expert in any job. Not that we consider ourselves experts, but
Yeah.
How do you feel like doing this program of study changed you?
Yeah, I think. Gosh, in so many ways, I think one of the things that I had always struggled with in my life is, where do I belong? That has always been a question.
Yeah, and it's like,
I found where I belong.
Yeah,
so coming to that, it's like, wow, it's such a beautiful thing. It's so freeing.
You didn't realize
I didn't realize it
that much until you had it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one moment I remember having with you in the program of you being like, I'm a research girl. I love research. I like it. And it was like this just big moment.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why it's so special to me that you get to hold people's hands, their little fearful hands, and lead them through because I think you did find your place in the world.
I did. Yeah. And I think having people around you too that were so loving and kind, meeting you, Tiffany.
And called out your goodness, because I feel like you've been really seen.
Yeah, exactly.
Academically and in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's really impactful. So, like, someone who's listening, if they're maybe in the middle of that, like, really hard time, or maybe things aren't so hard, but they're, they want to do something that might be scary, and it might be something they really want and not something everybody wants for them. Like, what would you say to help them either in that tough time when you can't see the end, where it's easier, or when you need to be really brave? Because I don't think they're that dissimilar from each other.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges is taking that first step.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a lot of times in my, looking back at different points in my life and things like that, where I kind of let my fear get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. And, just kind of recognizing, like, it's okay to feel fearful.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel anxious about it, but don't let that stop you.
It's not a command.
It's not a command. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's it's there and that's okay. And, do something that makes you take that first step. And it could be like a small thing. So like the first step for me was I was going to research schools. I was going to apply. And, it was small steps that were moving me in that direction.
And I thought, so I think that's, and then I also think it's like once you're in it, and then you can kind of like see like, this isn't really as bad as I thought. Yeah. Right? It's, but sometimes I think that fear can really paralyze us. And, that all of the things that go through our mind, that are not real, that are not true. Right. It's not the truth just because you have a thought about it. So I think that's what I would say. Like,
just do one step. Do one step.
Yeah.
Do one small thing in the direction that you want to go.
I love that. Because I think just because something's hard or times are hard doesn't mean anything's wrong. Sometimes you're exactly doing the right thing. It's just hard.
Yeah.
And so I like that idea of just kind of the whole, like, you can eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah. Just one step. I think that's so encouraging. So like, as you think about your story, like, what are you like most grateful for, or what's most precious to you? Because, it's such a beautiful story full of so much love, lots of hard work, lots of, challenges. But what's the most precious to you? You're not dead yet. So
your story so far, I should say, because you're still young.
So much more life to live.
I would say the people who are in my life is what's most precious. And so, definitely my children. And we didn't get to talk about my husband.
You have to talk about Bernie, because Bernie's going to watch this, and he is definitely
so vital.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so we were talking about dating, and I got to meet, my husband now, Bernie. And, I think it was his love that healed so many things, from things that I had experienced. And so I think, for me, I feel like love is very healing. And so that's precious to me, is to have love in your life, whether it's, love for your child or your pet or your sibling, but having that love in your life is very precious. I think that's, yes. And you have it. Your husband loves you. He adores you. It's really beautiful to watch, as do your boys. You're not necessarily protected, because I think, your boys and Bernie all see you as a strong, capable woman, but you are very cared for.
Yes.
And I love how they protect you, not because they think you need it, but because they want to.
Yes.
And I think that's really special. Yeah. Thank you so much for being with me today. Thank you. And thank you for everyone who's listening. Just want to encourage you to make sure that you are creating spaces where your story is heard, and be gentle with yourself. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to How Would You Rate Your Pain? Please subscribe on your favorite listening platform so you never miss an episode. And if this show made you think of someone, please share it with them to help us grow. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Bartell. You can find me on Instagram at the_happy_therapist_. This show is not intended as medical advice and should not take the place of therapy or other mental health services. Please consult with your doctor or mental health provider about your own health. You deserve all the support. How Would You Rate Your Pain is co-produced by Wavelength Studios and Chattanooga Podcast Studios, and is part of the Podnuga Network. Graphic design provided by Josh Wilhelm at JW Creates, and music by Michael Crosa. I'm Dr. Tiffany Bartell. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time right here on How Would You Rate Your Pain?